All right, so now we're back with lesson 1.4. This is part 3 of the video. And again, it's one of these parts where you can say, wow, there's a lot of memorization in trig, but I want to go through and show you how this makes sense. So hopefully maybe you're not memorizing everything, but you'll just look at it and say, oh, this makes good sense. You're just kind of figuring it out very quickly. Might be better. Okay, we're going to talk first of all something called a unit circle, and let me just put some coordinates on here so it looks a little bit better. We'll try to get that. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And another line coming down through here. Close enough. So pretend those, yeah, not bad. Pretend these are your x-axis here and your y-axis here. And now we're going to talk about a unit circle, and a unit means the radius of the circle is 1. If it's a unit, 1 unit. And that's kind of nice to work with a unit circle, because then I know if the radius is 1, I know what this point is right here. X-coordinate is 1, y-coordinate is 0. Or right here I know the x-coordinate is 0, the y-coordinate is 1. Or over here I know x-coordinate is negative 1, y-coordinate is 0. And here I know x-coordinate is 0, y-coordinate is negative 1. Which is kind of nice for our trig functions, because to know those x's and y's. I also, if I think about an angle, starting the x-axis, if I end right here, my angle would be 0 degrees. If I open up counterclockwise to here, that angle would be 90 degrees. If I keep coming over to here and end up here on the negative x-axis, that angle is 180 degrees. If I keep coming down over here, I get 270 degrees over here. And you could argue, wait a minute, what if you keep coming back this way? That's a 360. So that's 0 degrees, or it's 360 degrees. So it's going to turn out the trig functions for 0 degrees and 360 degrees are the same, because you ended up back at this same point. Okay, very nice. We've got our x and y coordinates. Look, we got it here, 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 here. If you're thinking through the definition, you're thinking, yes, that's nice, but I need to know r. But it's a unit circle. We know r also. So we know everything we need to know for 0 degrees, or 90, or 180, or 270, or 360 to figure out all the trig functions without a whole lot of work. Okay, so let's give this a shot. We'll kind of flip back and forth between this and our chart, see what we can do. And let's start right here with 0 degrees. We're going to work our way across horizontally here. 0 degrees, do you have the definitions memorized yet? Sine is y over r. 0 degrees. That's over here, 0 degrees. What's the y-coordinate? Oh, look, it's right there. What's r? I'm going to give you a hint. R is always going to be 1 in these problems. We made it convenient. We chose a circle of radius 1. So sine is y over r. What's cosine going to be? X over r. And tangent is y over x. So we've got this point here. And again, if you just think about 0 degrees, oh, I'm on the positive x-axis. That's the point 1, 0. We can do a lot of this in our head. Let's try it and see. Okay, sine was y over r. So it was 0 over 1, otherwise known as 0. What was the cosine? X over r, 1 over 1, known as 1. And the tangent was y over x, 0 over 1, otherwise known as 0. All right, let's take the reciprocals. 1 over 0 makes no sense, undefined. Secant, the reciprocal of cosine, 1 over 1 is still 1. And the cotangent, the reciprocal of the tangent, which is 0, 1 over 0, again another undefined. And this will work for the other 4. I'm going to fill in a couple and you can try one. Let's go with the 90. Let's just fill that one in. You can try it on your own if you'd like. But let's see. 90 degrees sine is y over r. We had a 1. And the radius, sine, the y-coordinate is 1. The radius is 1. So 1 over 1 is 1. The cosine is going to turn out is going to be 0. And the tangent here is undefined. All right, cosecant is reciprocal of 1, which is 1 again. Secant is reciprocal of 0, which is undefined. And then we'll be careful with this because you might think, wait, the cotangent is reciprocal of the tangent. What's the reciprocal of undefined? Good question. How can you take the reciprocal of something that's not defined? But instead go back. Cotangent was x over y. We know the x and y coordinates. The x coordinate is 0, and the y coordinate is 1. So that really does come out to be 0 if we go back to the absolute definition of it. Okay, 180, what do we get there? Sine is back to 0. Cosine, look at that, it's -1. Your x coordinate is negative. R is always positive. Your tangent is back to 0. And you know reciprocals, that'll be undefined. This will be undefined. And the reciprocal of -1 remains -1. And actually, hopefully this is making sense. We can certainly go over it more in class if it's not. So let's just continue going through these somewhat quickly. 270, sine is the y-coordinate. That's a -1. Cosine is 0. Tangent will be undefined yet again. Tangent is y over x, but the x-coordinate is 0 on this. And the cosecant, the reciprocal of -1 is -1. The reciprocal of 0 is undefined. And just like 90 degrees, the cotangent of 270 will be 0. And 360 is identical to 0. So we've got a 0 and a 1 and a 0 and an undefined and a 1 and an undefined. And you might be looking thinking, man, that's a lot to memorize. It is. But you know, this unit circle isn't a lot to memorize. I mean, you think through it, you probably were writing those points in before I was writing them in. 1, 0, 0, 1, -1, 0, 0, -1. And then we know R is always 1. So if you think through it, there's not that much to it. All right, last little bit here. How are these going to be used? Let's ask questions like this. Cosine of 90. And again, you think through it. Oh, wait, that's the x-coordinate. That's 0. 3 times the sine of 270. What's the sine of 270? The sine of 270 is -1. So we're just practicing these things. So we get a 0 minus 3. We get a -3 for that one. Again, we're trying to do these without a calculator. What's the tangent of 360? It's 0. What's the sine of 180? It's 0. What's the cosine squared? How do we do this? We're going to look up the cosine of 180, which is -1. And then the squared goes in that answer. And so finally we get something to work with. Here's a 0, here's a 0, here's 5. -1 squared is a +1, so 5 times 1 is 5. And you can just kind of knowing these values, and you won't need to really sit down and memorize this chart yet. But hopefully you're thinking through the unit circle. Oops, a little too fast there. Thinking through this unit circle a little bit. And just going through and having those make sense. You know, 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. Do you know what the x-coordinate is? And do you know what the y-coordinate is? And if you have a unit circle, it turns out then the x-coordinate is your cosine, and the y-coordinate is your sine. All right, and that completes lesson 4.